Is the president really prepared to shut down the government again in 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think he actually is. Keep in mind, he's willing to do whatever it takes to secure the border. He does take this very seriously. This is a serious humanitarian and security crisis, and as President of the United States, he takes the security of the nation as his highest priority.
All right, so there's a new shutdown deadline on the table, and that is February 15th. Let's bring in White House Mercedes Schlapp is joining us, White House Director of Strategic Communications. Mercedes, great to have you here. We're talking about this February 15th deadline now. What does the president think can get done by then?
Look, the president has perfectly set the table now for the negotiations with Congress. This is obviously, we're trying to see if we can get this legislative fix and ensuring that we're able to fund the border. And if he also has perfectly set the table for other options as well, if we need to look into other options in order to fund the border. So again, we feel we're in a good position. I think at this point it's a matter of seeing if Congress can deliver.
What do those other options include? Executive order?
Well, again, we are looking at all options on the table. Obviously, he has discussed in the past about declaring a national emergency. Our goal right now is to ensure that Congress can come up with a plan of action. You have these conferees coming together this Wednesday. They are going to be meeting with experts to talk about what resources our Border Patrol agents need. The president has been one to listen to our Border Patrol agents, and they have recognized the need of having funding for physical barriers. And that was why we came up with a $5.7 billion figure, because of the fact that it allows to build over 200 miles of the wall in the top priorities that the Border Patrol agents have identified to ensure that our border is protected and we're able to decrease the amount of illegal immigrants who are crossing the border.
Well, just about 2 weeks ago, you made an offer of $5.7 billion in funding, but there were a lot of other things in there: 3-year temporary status for Dreamers and a number of judges and beds at the border. If you take that deal that you put on the table 2 weeks ago, how many Democrats in the House do you think would vote for it?
Look, I think there was definitely pressure from the rank and file Democrats. They placed pressure on the Democrat leadership because they were wanting to make sure we were able to reopen the government and then negotiate with the president. We've had Democrats on record saying that physical barriers work. The president proposed a good faith effort, in a good faith compromise. This was an opportunity to bring the Democrats to the table. They refused to negotiate. Now that we're back on where we're able to reopen the government for the next 3 weeks, this is going to put pressure on these conferees to get a good negotiation done.
Do you think you'll get any Democrats to vote for it then? Is it?
Look, I think at this point it's up to the conferees to come up with a good plan. And then at that point, the president will decide if that would be enough resources to ensure that we secure the border.
So is there a State of the Union date set, Mercedes?
Well, we know it's definitely not tomorrow, but our offices are working with Nancy Pelosi's offices to set a date. Obviously, when she first rescinded the invitation, which was the fact of saying that there was a security concern or asked for a delay in the State of the Union, there were no security concerns. You know, the president's looking forward to addressing the American people, talking about our booming economy, the great work we've done to help all American workers, as well as talk about our strength in the foreign circles and what we've been able to do, for example, in moving towards denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula. So we have a great story to tell, and the president is looking forward to addressing the American people.
Just to be clear, as of now, there's no invitation from the House Speaker. Is that right?
That is correct. Our offices are talking.
Okay. On the Roger Stone news, how was the White House reacting to this as a longtime friend of the president?
Look, I mean, there's no evidence of collusion by the president or senior White House officials. You know, I think it's just interesting if you're setting the standard on Roger Stone to also, you know, ask the question of others who've provided false statements like James Clapper or James Comey, for that matter.
What does the president have to say about this morning, Roger Stone?
You know, again, we're focused in on getting border security completed. Our goal right now, and as we move towards the State of the Union, is to talk about ways that we can work with Congress to achieve our priorities and on the president's agenda. I mean, our goal is to continue to push forward on economic prosperity and growth in America, making sure that wages keep going up, making sure that there are job opportunities for all Americans. We've created over 7 million jobs. I mean, that is just unprecedented. And so the president wants to keep focused on those issues that matter, which is that of the economy, which is that of ensuring that we secure our border. I mean, we were talking today about human trafficking being a huge issue right now on the southern border, where ICE, for example, was able to identify over 300 victims of human trafficking. So those are the issues that we're focused on in the White House.
All right, two more topics quickly. John Bolton on threats to the Americans of Venezuela. He tweeted this: any violence and intimidation against U.S. diplomatic personnel, Venezuela's Democratic leader, Juan Guaido, or the National Assembly itself would represent a grave assault on the rule of law and will be met with a significant response. What is that suggesting in terms of response?
Well, again, we, the United States, we're looking into economic and diplomatic actions against the Maduro regime. It is time for Maduro to give it up. This is a moment where the Venezuelan people are talking, they're speaking up. They want democracy. They want rule of law. They are tired of what we have seen as an oppressive regime that has destroyed this nation and destroyed the people of Venezuela. It is time for democracy to speak. It is time for freedom. That is what the Venezuelan people want. It is why we are recognizing the interim president, Juan Guaido, and want to make sure that there is success in that region and in that country.
Here's the latest that we heard from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo on this.
Now it's time for every other nation to pick a side. No more delays, no more games. Either you stand with the forces of freedom or you're in league with Maduro and his mayhem.
So what further action is the president and his administration looking at taking here?
Again, I'm not going to get ahead of any of these announcements, but we are going to look at our economic and diplomatic channels to ensure that we put pressure on Maduro's regime. It's one of the angles that we're doing to ensure that we can promote democracy in that country. It is a moment in time where you see hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans going to the streets to support the interim president Guaido. We know that the National Assembly has spoken. They want Maduro out, and this is a moment in time for that to happen. We are going to continue to talk to our allies. And as Secretary Pompeo said, it's time to pick sides. And we stand with freedom. We stand with democracy in Venezuela. And we want the people to regain the power instead of having a dictator in place that has absolutely destroyed that country.
Okay, we'll continue to watch that. Mercedes Schlapp, I hope you come back soon. We are out of time, but thank you for your time today. From the North Lawn there, thanks.